In the annals of time, riding social forces as they crest and crash onto the shores of history, some would-be heroes stumble but manage to recover their breath. Others are reduced to the flotsam and jetsam of nostalgia. These others are our subjects. They are the vanquished.
Hello and welcome to The Vanquished. Anders J. Lee here with my co-host Freddie G.
I am so happy to be here.
And we are joined by a guest comedian and host of the Toxic Dump podcast, Atheer Yacoub.
Hi.
And we're talking about a guy who's in the news right now and is back with a beard, Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, who's probably going to be the next ambassador to Israel, which is not good news, but probably, it's not like anyone else.
Is there any good ambassador to Israel?
Yeah, I was about to say. The guy before him, Trump's last guy, was thinking about it and decided he wanted to hang out in the U.S. more or something. But this guy is pretty hardcore evangelical. I think this is the first time we've had an evangelical Christian be the.
I would think it's usually a Jew. Yeah, this is a non-Jew. Yeah, he's more Zionist than most Jews.
Right.
He'll definitely get confirmed because he has the least problematic sex life of any Trump cabinet nominee.
It's not saying much.
Yeah, that we know of. I mean, maybe there's some weird skeletons in his closet. I think anytime...
There's gotta be, right?
Yeah. Anytime someone's super fixated on gay people and them getting married or doing anything, there's usually some weird clocks working in their mind.
His wife is named Janet, and they asked him about Janet Yellen in one of the debates, and he's like, it sounds like my wife Janet yelling. And I just love that he was able to make that joke. He does have a certain charm sometimes with the bad jokes.
He's a roast comic on the side.
I bet the minute he first heard the words Janet Yellen, he was like, all right, I'm going to have this in the holster.
I got to run for president again just to make this joke.
Yeah. To start out with this nomination, he has described October 7th as horrific, beyond anything he's ever witnessed. And he interviews Elliot Abrams on Jewish New Year and has been hawking gold for a couple years. There's a promo code where you get extra silver with the gold, I guess. But this is American Hartford gold.
It sounds bad that it's named for a second-tier city. Yeah, give me Fort Knox gold. Huckabee does, he does hawk scam products. That is it. He's done a for-profit college. He does a little, yeah. He seems so honest, and then he sells scams.
There's a cancer cure, right?
Yes, there's a biblically inspired cancer cure based on the book of Joshua, and then it ultimately is just eat fewer carbs.
Just pray. Pray the cancer away.
Yeah. Well, this is there's definitely a departure from the Democrat nominees or ambassadors to Israel. Says that the proposal for a two-state solution is insanity. He's very against it.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah. Right.
For different reasons.
Yeah.
Entirely.
He's correct for the wrong reasons. I mean, I did listen to a podcast he did with, it's a Zionist podcast, and they asked him towards the end, do you have any warm words for Palestinians who have had a really rough year? And I was like, wow, are they actually
also
acknowledging something?
Yeah.
Right. And then the rough year just having to live under Hamas is what the host said. There's just you cannot concede anything that Israel's done that's been bad for Palestine. But he will often demagogue against globalists, which is ironic. And this is the case with a lot of these right-wing evangelical Zionists who it's this weird religious theological irony where they need Jews to be in this region for basically biblically OCD reasons, but they're still anti-Semitic.
That's a crazy thing because I grew up in Alabama, unfortunately, and Palestine. But, that's the evangelical connection has always been insane to me because I'm they hate Jewish people, but they just need them there for the second coming of the Christ.
Yeah.
But then isn't it the opposite with there's the anti-Zionist Jews, either the Hasids or Orthodox that believe the opposite, that the current state of Israel is actually preventing the second coming.
Right.
Basically, the Christian Zionists say the Jews have to go to Israel so our Messiah will come.
Right.
And then he will kill 2/3 of the Jews. But then the Jewish, the Torah Judaism, which is some of the Hasidics, They say that we have to not go to Israel till the Messiah comes. Right. So it's a bit of a game of Messiah chicken going on.
Messiah chicken, that's great.
Man, I mean, he's very like fire and brimstone. I think the fact that he has a beard is like some biblical thing, and Trump maybe saw that and was like, now is the time for Huckabee.
He's never looked more like Moses.
Yeah.
Huckabee. Yeah, Huckabee was getting old looking, and then he grew this beard. He's like, he's back to being hot Mike Huckabee.
Maybe he's secretly Hamas, and he's just trying to...
Could be. Wouldn't be. I mean, yeah, that would be an interesting sleeper arrangement. But yeah, it was announced November 12th. Trump says Huck is going to bring peace to the Middle East. And this guy's been going to Israel for a long time. He's taken about 100 trips to and from Israel. After 2016, he was considered to be the ambassador, reportedly. But he also... Yeah, he's going back to like 1984 when he was a minister, has been going on a form of birthright in a way. And there's in the 2010s, he hired a PR guy from Jerusalem and took a trip in 2010 where he brought over Pat Boone, who wrote a song for the movie Exodus, which I listened to. It's like a really weird song, but they were like, this is a really good PR move for you. So he's kind of been establishing himself as like the Israel guy, and does kind of believe this wacky stuff.
You know about the movie Exodus?
No.
So older Jews, there was a movie in like 1960 about a boat of Jews that tried to go to Israel, and then the Palestinians denied them, and it's like a propaganda movie for Israel. Okay, and people like Joe Biden and Mike Huckabee's age, they think this movie is like real, and it like makes them like Israel way more. And then younger Jews have never seen it. Like I didn't hear of it till I started researching this stuff. But that movie had like a big impact on American public opinion.
Paul Newman. Yeah, I know about it from watching Mad Men because they reference.
Oh yeah, there's a Mad Men episode where Don Draper's advertising for Israel.
Yeah,
and they talk about the people being hot, and that is still a factor in advertisements today.
There's a story though, very weird story from one of Huck's books. Hope to Higher Ground is what it's called. I think everything's like H related for brand recognition.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But he meets a Palestinian in 1984 who's a little older than him, and tells Huckabee about the day he comes back from school, and there's this block he's lived in since he was born, and is just removed and relocated to a camp, and is told that this block is now going to be occupied by Israelis. And Huckabee says, it was always easy for me to understand why the Jews, having been displaced for 1,000 years, would feel a divine right to return to the land promised to their forefathers, taken from them. But that encounter with the Palestinian also taught me an important lesson. He reminds me that even when we, gets cut off there.
It gets cut off. Yeah, but basically just like to care a little bit about the Palestinians. But
yeah,
he's going to care about what God says more. Yeah,
right.
Sorry that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird to like have that recognition and then just do nothing. I guess he's recognizing humanity, but can't seem to, it's still subservient to the state of Israel.
He has the ability to be nice, but then if something toes the biblical line or the GOP line, he's not going to be nice. And then he goes into like evil Huck mode. Right.
It reminds me of Reverend Wright. After 2008, he did say like he understands why Reverend Wright would say all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, I might even say worse stuff if I was black in America. But then he just, repeats all the GOP talking points about what you do.
Oh, so how can we talk about Reverend Wright?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think it's because he's also a minister, so he understands like liberation theology.
And he did some work early in his career, like on integration in churches and stuff. Like he's willing to embrace Southern black conservatives who are Christian.
Yeah. There's another story where he's at an inn in Israel, and a woman takes a pen out of his pocket and puts her name and address on a piece of paper.
Wow.
And he leans over, watches her, and this is in the registry for the inn, and his 11-year-old daughter.
Oh, yeah, sorry. This story is about the Holocaust.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, you made it seem like some kind of sexy thing was happening. Yeah, the inn. And it's like, what would Jesus do? And it's like, he'd probably go back to her place. Yeah. Yeah, so this is about, he goes to the Israeli Holocaust Museum, Yad Vashem. You want me to Yeah, he goes to Yad Vashem with his daughter. She's very upset. I think I've actually been there. Yeah, I mean, it's upsetting. I don't really remember the details of it when I was there, but yeah. He goes to Yad Vashem. It's very upsetting. His daughter's not talking. Then she signs in the registry book, how could people let this happen? And he puts this in his book, and it's ironic because his job now is to make a Holocaust happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's former governor of Arkansas. Bill Clinton had that position too, and they have a lot of similarities, as we'll get to. But one thing they have in common is they're referring to the West Bank as Judea and Samaria and not the West Bank. And Huckabee is now saying, or I think Republicans are now saying that officially in all U.S. government documents, we're not going to have the West Bank, which is pretty, maybe they'll get away with it. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a bad sign.
Yeah.
It's a bad.
And he's like really adamant there's no such thing as an occupation. It's hard to imagine. Like, he's met Palestinians and heard their side of it and just is still so adamant about this stuff. It's just kind of strange how people's minds can process both those things.
You're a family who lives there, right?
Yeah, I've lived there too, but I still have family in Ramallah, in the West Bank.
So, do they talk about it as the West Bank, or do they call it more of an old name? I think West Bank was like a newer name that came up maybe post 1948.
Nobody says West Bank. We call like post 48 Dafeh, which I actually don't know what that officially means. And then we call anything that is Israel 1948 either 48 territories or occupied Palestine.
So I guess West Bank's already the compromise name. It's a very confusing name because it's the West Bank of the Jordan, but it's on the east side of Israel, and it takes a while when you're learning about this stuff to get that in your head because it's very confusing.
Right. But I assume they're probably not thrilled about if it's officially named Judea and Samaria, according to the U.S.
I mean, it's like, does it even matter what the U.S. call? Like, like it's still going to be the same shit going on. I don't think they have the time to think about the semantics of it. I think, even people like Palestinians living in Israel.
Sorry, can you talk in your mic a little?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was saying Palestinians that live in 1948 territories, which is known as Israel, which I guess all of it to America is known as Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not living in any better conditions, right? Even though it's like, we'd like to say, sure, like, let's just have one country. We could all live together. That would be the ideal situation, have a pluralistic society as it used to be. But that is directly antithetical to what Zionism is. So it's just funny how, like, we got the blame, like, we don't want to compromise, but we're saying, no, that's not the thing that we want. It's like, we want what it used to be.
Right.
We're not trying to have just like an ethno state and just have like, rights for one people and not the other. And if that's not apartheid and occupation, then I don't know what is. It's just crazy that they just can't see the cognitive dissonance that happens with these people. And I wonder how many of these people, maybe I wonder it more with like Democratic candidates. I put that in quotes, like, do they believe the shit that they're saying, or are they just saying it to get elected?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like someone like Bill Clinton going out of his way to lecture Palestinians like that, on some level, he must actually believe his own bullshit, even though like he was there and knows that what he's saying is not true about the deal not being accepted. Like, his version of events is just wrong. But I guess it's kind of a group thing. But now Democrats are going to be forced to kind of take. I mean, they're probably not going to. They're
budge.
They're probably not going to budge, but at least it's like you have just the cravenness and the fundamentalism on full display over the next, however long. And if they're going to speak out against it, then they're going to have to account for what's been happening for a really long time under Democratic administrations too.
I think I see with Bill Clinton, like, he had the Lewinsky scandal. He's like, I need to do one thing at the end of my presidency to like redeem myself. I'm going to get peace in Israel and Palestine. And then it failed, and he's just been merciless on the Palestinians since then. I think he sort of blames them for not giving him that last win. And then 9/11 happens. The stock market was like a bubble from tech. And he wanted it as a legacy thing. Yeah. And he also was willing to rush the whole thing just to make sure he could get credit for it and not hand it over to the Bush administration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously under like Obama, there's a lot of, this is usually the furthest they'll go is to condemn settlements that Israel is building in quote unquote the West Bank. But as we said, that term doesn't really capture it. But there's a lot of blowback from Republicans like Mike Huckabee, who said during a debate in 2016 that the Obama administration is putting more pressure on Israel to stop building bedrooms in Judea and Samaria than on the Iranians to stop building a nuke, which kind of shows where his head's at. And yeah, they're just bedrooms, just neutral bedrooms. He doesn't even mention who the bedrooms are for. But that's happening in the mid 2010s, and the best the U.S. can do is like wave a finger at it, but no, he's not criticizing any actual levers being moved to stop it.
It's a weird argument because like even if you built a military base, it contains like beds. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like a bedroom for a purpose, because if you're gonna live someplace, you need a bed to sleep in.
Right. But I guess zooming out a bit, Mike Huckabee, the man, bit of a lighter topic. This guy in general. When was your guys' first exposure to Huck? Do you remember, Fred?
I think the 2008 debates. I remember always being like, well, he's a preacher. I'm an atheist. So I definitely don't want the preacher guy. That's the Republican I like the least in the debates. Especially with no Ted Cruz, at least there was no one that. Yeah, there was no one as dislikable as Huckabee to me.
And Atheer, do you have any?
I think it's Fox News show. That's like when I was kind of like, I was always kind of aware of him, but I'm still like, wait, who is this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and yeah, it's, I mean, I've never heard anything good about him. Everything I've heard about him has just been awful. So I'm just like, I just kind of like put him out of my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just the same crazy like rhetoric I grew up with in Alabama that I would hear everybody say. So they all just kind of like, you know, try not to take too much space in my mind from hearing all this shit like over and over.
Yeah.
No, we're sorry we're going to go in such depth about him now. Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Yeah. So he's revisiting my childhood trauma. And I went to evangelical. Well, I don't know if they're technically Evangelical Christian college, but they're pretty close.
Which one?
Stanford. Stop sending me fucking like mail also. I don't know how they keep finding me.
Oh, God.
Stanford?
I don't Stanford.
Oh,
no,
Stanford.
Not Stanford.
Okay, I didn't know they were.
Not Stanford, no. Which is funny because people always confuse that. But no, it's just a liberal arts Christian school, like private Christian school in Alabama, college. And I was like, when I went there, I think it was one of the, I didn't know any other Arabs or Muslims there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But anyway, that is the same kind of rhetoric that I would like grow up hearing. And
yeah,
that could definitely be a good one-woman show.
Yeah.
I'm working on one. I don't know if Sanford, maybe I should talk about Sanford.
Yeah, one only Muslim in an evangelical Christian school. It practically writes itself. Yeah.
My preschool teacher was named Miss Stanford, and she lives in Alabama, so maybe there's a connection there. But yeah, I mean, I do remember 2008. It was like the first election I nerded out about as I was in high school at the time. And Huckabee, I didn't like him, but my friend, his dad worked in like music education, and he said Huckabee did like a benefit show for them because even though he was a Republican, he was always in favor of more arts funding, and he like played bass at this thing and apparently just nailed it. And my friend was saying like, yeah, Huckabee is an amazing bassist.
He got to play with Leonard Skinner. Yeah, Huckabee's for arts and music education. He calls them weapons of mass instruction. Delightful Huckabee pun. Yeah,
I mean, it's not a bad point.
A bassist and a racist?
There you go. That's a good one. Yeah, if he stuck to just playing bass, I think that would be good for everybody.
See, the problem for us is we did Marco Rubio last, and he has no likable qualities. And then Huckabee has like a couple. So it's like he seems like, it was like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
this is the lighter one.
Yeah. He's a very charismatic guy. But he was born, his middle name is Dale, Michael Dale Huckabee, born in 1955. Dale feels like a very Arkansan middle name.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
And he is born in Hope, Arkansas, which is another similarity to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton also originally from there. That was part of his 1992 mythos, is that he's a man from Hope. However, he moved when he was like a toddler. So it was just like a good name and kind of a dishonest campaign play. But Mike Huckabee's actually from Hope. And the other thing the town is known for is having the world's largest watermelon. And as Mike Huckabee says in the debate, I'm from the small town of Hope. You may have heard of it. All I'm asking is give us one more chance. And I don't know if it's like something about the water there, but I think generates charismatic politicians, at least two. But they're both very good speakers. And something we found out about is Mike Huckabee, one of his first jobs was doing the weather on the local news when he was 14 years old. And his daughter has enshrined some like repeals of child labor laws in Arkansas. And it makes you think like in Hope, instead of like sending kids to the coal mine, they were like making them go into news studios and like get really good at public speaking and stuff.
Yeah, he's like running this whole Christian station or like this conservative station. It makes him a Republican, and he says it's like the Republican Party. The internship he was in had unlimited opportunity, and as you said, also support for child labor.
Yeah. But his dad was a firefighter. And his mom works at a gas station or a gas company as a clerk, and they are both conservative Democrats, which is like a common thing in the South at that time, particularly Arkansas.
What does that mean exactly? What are they conservative? Like just politically democratic and religiously conservative, or
yeah,
I don't know how that works. Yeah,
there's segregation at this point too. It means
It means they're Dixiecrats. Okay. I would guess. I mean, the Democratic Party was like kind of the party of the Confederacy in the South for a long time after the war, and that was like the dividing line. And realignment, I guess, happened.
So the New Deal gives a lot of money to like people who don't have a lot of money, and that's great, but only white people. So it's like, let's do things for the poor people, but only the poor white people.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of explains Huckabee's political views, which now are pretty like down the line conservative Republican. But earlier in his career, he's a little more heterodox. But he grows up in a house with 7 kids. He says his mom grew up with a dirt floor. And he says he's a person of optimism who knows what it's like to go from a small house to the governor's mansion. And he has all these opportunities because of God. Very religious from a young age. And his wife's name... Her maiden name was McCain, interestingly.
I couldn't find a connection to John McCain.
Yeah, probably isn't one, but she's also from Hope, Arkansas. They're high school sweethearts, and within 2 years of being married, she gets diagnosed with spinal cancer and eventually recovers thanks to prayer, perhaps, and they have 3 kids. Eventually, she runs for office, too. While he's governor, she runs for Secretary of State and just gets walloped. I guess, maybe it's like because of Hillary, people are skeptical of Arkansas first ladies.
It is funny. It's like, you're going to be my secretary, honey.
Yeah, right. But he was a Democrat going early on and runs a conservative radio station. And he says the guy running the station gave him unlimited opportunity, which is the principle behind the Republican Party. Also, child labor seems like a principle in both cases. And he always wanted to go into politics because he looked up to Ronald Reagan. Leaves Hope, Arkansas, and works for a televangelist, James Robeson. Do you remember a lot of televangelists in Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I lived in Birmingham, so I think probably more in like the smaller towns and stuff, pockets of that. 'Cause Birmingham, I didn't realize till I got to college, was like the New York City of Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
And then I met other people from small towns I hadn't even heard of, and I'm like, whoa. And they're like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it in this big city. I'm like, what? But yeah, a lot of televangelists. I think my school, the college I went to, was kind of like sister schools with Liberty, which is a big like evangelical.
Oh, yeah.
I remember like one of my professors like also taught there. It was just a weird vibe, but yeah. And we had to go to like a church service every week for the college for credits, and they would be like evangelizing and like crazy. But you're talking about those people on TV. They're just like crazy. Yeah. I would flip through the channels and see these people, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are you yelling?
Yeah, Liberty's Jerry Falwell. I think they didn't allow interracial dating till like the 80s or something. Yeah, Liberty is real bad.
I know Bob Jones University, you like weren't allowed to listen to music or something.
It's the devil. Yeah. See, Huckabee's pro music. We're gonna get to it later. Yeah. Huckabee. Yeah, he's a little
wild child.
Yeah, there's Christians who think Huckabee's a little light on the dancing and the music.
Maybe he is gay.
Yeah.
I mean,
could be. Yeah.
Closeted, obviously.
Yeah. But I mean, he probably has evangelical type experience in college. I remember him saying that he was offered beer, and the pitch for trying beer was like, it tastes bad, but you like it. And he's like, why would I do that? And he's never drank beer, or I think alcohol.
I was going to say, yeah.
Which, like, that is a good point, Mike Huckabee.
It helps that he went to like a college that was like for like seminary or something. Like he went to a very, like he was learning how to be a minister or a Christian broadcaster or something.
Yeah. But he does, to his credit, he helps integrate the Emmanuel Baptist Church in the mid-'80s, which seems like too long of a time to not have black members.
Seriously, yeah.
And he's also starting TV stations in Pine Bluff and Texarkana, and starts working as a minister and gets a lot of insight into people's lives, and deals with people who have in a lot of places the minister is kind of like the social worker for the town, like because they don't
absolutely
funding for other stuff.
Yeah, that's the contrast with him and like Mitt Romney or McCain. It's like he's been around working class and poor people in a way Mitt Romney probably never has.
Right.
Because his dad owns a car company.
Yeah. And eventually he's sort of pushed into politics. He runs for Senate in 1992, which is the same year Clinton is getting elected president. And he runs against Dale Bumpers, who's, I think, a fairly progressive
an all-Dale election. This is, Yeah, he can win, but not against another Dale. Yeah.
Right. I mean, he's just as the middle name.
Yeah, it's not enough.
If you're not doing a first name.
Tale of two Dales.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
God, I did not write these puns ahead of time.
No, Huckabee would like it. He inspires that,
Yeah. And then eventually he's pushed into running for lieutenant governor, and they say, you can appeal to these conservative Democrats who, Clinton has helped, have helped him get elected. And he runs and gets elected lieutenant governor, and then eventually the governor, who's a guy named Jim Guy Tucker,
love that name,
is charged with fraud because of the Whitewater scandal. Like the Clintons had some real estate investment gone bad in Arkansas, and he becomes governor. And I think like Jim Guy Tucker doesn't want to leave for a while. He's basically forced out. And so now you have Mike Huckabee in charge of the governorship, and it's been a Democratic state up to this point. Clinton was governor like throughout almost all of the 80s, and you Tucker, and so now people are kind of skeptical of a Republican in Arkansas, and he's extremely pro-life. He says, I'm not pro-life because I'm in politics. I'm in politics because I'm pro-life. But as you pointed out, he's not. He's more.
Unless they're Palestinian or people of color or even after they're born.
Right. Exactly. He means really just fetuses.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's very pro-fetus.
Yeah.
Probably That's what they should call it.
Yeah.
Well, even then, I mean, it's like their branding is crazy. It's like you're either anyway. I mean, that's a whole other topic, obviously.
Mm-hmm. He's not pro-Palestinian fetus though.
No. Actually, that'd be interesting. Would they let a Palestinian woman in America get an abortion? Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably going to come up over the next 4 years. It's like, are they going to legalize abortion for people they don't like? But he does streamline the car registration system, which seems like a real hot button issue in Arkansas. That's the reason Clinton lost when he was governor for his first 2-year term. They didn't like his his car tab tax policy, and so he got thrown out, and then he gets back in by saying he'll change it. And even up till the 90s, this just cars are for some reason just continue to be an issue in Arkansas.
Yeah, he mentioned in one of his books, like, you had to go to 4 different places. It was a mess to register for a car. You had to do it every year, and this is almost every voter has a car. This was bad. And he was like, if someone could streamline this, they'll be governor for life, and that's what he does.
Yeah. But he does, he does other sort of liberal things because, again, it's still kind of a Democratic state. So he's like increasing government spending in some cases, education funding. That comes back to bite him when he's running for president. And there's a bill he signs into law regarding covenant marriage, which sounds kind of creepy. What is covenant marriage, Fred?
It's basically like you get rid of no fault divorce. You say if we get married, if we want to get divorced, we have to go to counseling and stuff like that.
Wow.
It's basically, it sounds all biblical and cool, and Huckabee changes his marriage to a covenant marriage, but it would be a nightmare for a person in an abusive relationship.
Okay.
You mean you can't get divorced, you just can go to counseling?
If you go to enough counseling, they'll be like, okay, fine, get divorced.
Oh, I see.
But I'm sure the guy who gets, and I'm definitely a guy, the guy who's like counseling you is like super Christian and anti-divorce. So it's kind of hearkening back more to a biblical marriage. And this has been even in the conservative YouTuber thing saying like getting rid of no fault divorce and all that. But speaking of another Mad Men reference, when Betty Draper wants to divorce Don, she has to go to like Vegas or whatever because they didn't have no fault divorce at that time.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's like instead of a prenup, it's like a mutually assured destruction pact.
Yeah.
But and he's, again, super anti-gay marriage at that point when it's a more popular issue. Clinton is signing it into law, the Defense of Marriage Act. And there's a tax cut. He talks about the broad-based tax cut. Does eliminate the income tax for families below the poverty line, which I can't be mad at. And increase standard deductions, eliminates the marriage penalty. Also cuts the capital gains tax and Huckabee's named the friend of a taxpayer by Americans for Tax Reform. And this helps get him on the radar for the Republican Party.
Yeah, that Grover Norquist guy is like, he's cool. He's good at lowering taxes. Yeah. That's the kind of way to get national office.
And by the time, he's governor in 2005 during Katrina, and I think acts more effectively than George W. Bush.
Nice.
And maybe that's, again, like a difference in their class backgrounds, but he actually sends the Arkansas National Guard to help out in Hurricane Katrina.
He's sort of the guy George W. Bush is pretending to be.
Right.
Like the guy from the South who's very Christian and like willing to do some liberal things to help people.
Yeah.
And like Bush is just a rich kid who's like to some extent faking it, and Huckabee is not.
Right. Another big thing about Huckabee, literally big, is when he's elected governor, he is obese. He's a corpulent man, and eventually he gets diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And they say to him, the doctors do, that you're not going to live another 10 years unless you lose weight. And he acknowledges he was around 300 pounds. And you just had another former governor of Arkansas pass away from a heart attack. And it made him eat healthier. He talked to God, and he helped himself lose over 110 pounds in I think a pretty brief amount of time. And the New York Times said this weight loss is so rapid that it was as if he simply unzipped a fat suit and stepped out.
I didn't realize how rapid it was. Yeah, because by the time it's like he already writes the book about losing weight only a couple of years later.
Yeah. When does he write that book?
That's the one I didn't read, but he by like 06, 07, he's writing that book.
Okay.
And he's ready to run. He's ready to run for president. Yeah, so he must lose it in only a couple of years.
Atheer is actually a nutritionist. What is the healthy time frame to lose 110 pounds, would you say?
Oh, man. That's a good question, because I think it just depends on, exactly how much weight you have to lose. For someone who's like just like kind of slightly overweight, probably no more than 2 pounds. But it also depends on how. That's the thing.
Oh,
with
like 2 pounds a week, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, 2 pounds
Okay.
a week. But someone who only has like, let's say like 10 pounds, like half a pound to a pound, but then somebody who has 110 pounds, I think of like 2 years is probably like a good amount of time. But I know a lot of people who get bariatric surgery and they'll lose like 100 pounds in like under a year. But then you have, all like loose skin, you could be like malnourished, all this other stuff that could come with it. Also, it just makes me question like what kind of like diet could you be on that it probably isn't the healthiest if you're losing weight that quickly.
Right.
But I guess if it's between that and then your diabetes getting worse, I guess people are like, oh, let me just act quickly now. So I wonder if he had bariatric surgery. That seems like...
That would be a huge scandal, yeah. I haven't read the book, but he likes to. He doesn't want you to think he did. That would be very interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
really? You think he?
I think he wrote a diet book that I didn't read, but I think he wants to say that he did it through like a good mindset and stuff like that. 110 pounds is crazy because he basically lost the entire weight of Jesus. So he lost to Jesus, yeah.
I mean, he does run marathons, so it seems like running played a role in this. He beats Tom Vilsack, governor of Iowa, in the 2005 Little Rock Marathon. Yeah, that's 2005.
That's how you win the Iowa Caucus. You got to beat their governor in a marathon.
But then he gains a lot of the weight back because he has a foot condition that prevents him from running. So it sounds like maybe this is... Sometimes people just lose weight through exercise and they don't change their diet. Is that common?
Wait, so don't change their diet, but just exercise? So, I mean, this is a common gripe I have that people think that, exercise is all that you have to do. But really, it's 80% nutrition, about 20% exercise.
Wow. I love that.
I would agree with that.
I hate exercise.
I've lost a lot of weight without exercising. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, I think he did change his diet, but we'll have to. Yeah,
I think he'd have to. Yeah.
I read 4 Mike Huckabee books, and I was like, I could skip the diet one, and then turns out no. Yeah.
It's the one I'm quizzing you on the most. I ran for 5 minutes today, so that's good to know. It only matters for 20%.
Well, think about you could spend an hour burning like 500 calories, and then a donut is that much. You could eat that in 5 minutes. Not even 5 seconds. Yeah. Whatever. Under a minute. So you're like, when you're like thinking about the opportunity cost and like the time, it's really not worth it. Kind of but people have that mindset too, and they end up gaining weight when they exercise because they're like, I went to the gym today, and you're like, yeah, you walk for 10 minutes on the treadmill, and then now you're eating 1,000 extra calories. It's like, how did I gain weight? So you have to kind of take that into consideration.
Yeah, Gatorade is evil. Gatorade is like put sugar in your body after you. Yeah, Gatorade is so evil. Yeah.
Well, I could see where by the time he's running for president, you don't have time really to eat unless you're Mitt Romney. You're not able to really eat a lot of healthy food.
Absolutely.
On the campaign trail.
So this is an old school campaign. When he's running, he's flying commercial, and he's like, there's a million delays, but he says it's making him a man of the people by experiencing what they experience. But he is not running in private jets and with a personal chef like Mitt Romney probably has.
There is an interesting thing that happens. I guess I don't know if this is before or after Katrina, but the governor's mansion in Arkansas is destroyed by a tornado.
So Arkansas.
Seems like something would happen in Kansas.
Yeah. He goes to Oz for a little bit. He doesn't talk about in the books, but
That's how he lost all the weight. He walked the yellow brick road again in sneakers. He comes back to the governor's mansion, and they don't move it. They rebuild it and makes it ADA compliant. So that is kind of cool. And then they install toll-free telephone lines to report littering. I don't know if that means there's a Frito bag over there. Someone come pick it up. Someone whose job it is just pick up. I
think you're supposed to rat on people. You're supposed to see who did it.
So it's to get people in trouble.
I think that's
That's a very Republican way.
To deal with it. And they already had cell phones at this point, but it's still
right. And he is on kind of a health kick, and this comes back to bite him. Is he passes a law to ban indoor smoking, which if you're a Republican in the 2000s, that's a big no-no. That's nanny state stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You can't do that.
He had previously taken a bunch of tobacco money.
Oh,
he was doing public speaking for nonprofits funded by R.J. Reynolds.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a broke guy. He makes money through speaking and preaching and whatever. Yeah, because I think a lot of this was when he was lieutenant governor, which does not pay well.
Right. Yeah. A lot of those smaller states, they're only in session for like a few months out of the year, and they just don't pay very well to be a politician. He serves. Arkansas changes its rule. They had 2-year governor terms. Gubernatorial. Sorry, it's my favorite word to use.
What's the word?
Gubernatorial.
Ooh.
Just means anything related to being a governor.
It's a good word, yeah.
Sounds like goober.
It does. I think I like it. But
Yeah, Huckabee's a goober.
Gubernatorial.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, maybe they started using that when he became a governor.
I'm surprised, Trump didn't call one of the governors a goober. Yeah, Jeb Bush, you goober.
That does sound like a Trump term.
But they change it because it's 2-year. This is term limit nerds will find this interesting. But when Clinton's governor, it's like 2-year terms, and then eventually they change it to 4-year terms in 1998, and Huckabee wins a couple and serves until 2007. There's some scandalous pardons. He doesn't give that many pardons and commutations to prisoners, but people who are already done serving their sentence and they wanted jobs, and it's on your record, there's one controversial case, Wayne DeMond, who is serving a life sentence for rape, and then his Huckabee puts him on parole, and that gets him in trouble. It's kind of a Dukakis, Willie Horton situation, which is interesting because he's a Republican from Arkansas who's has a issue with pardoning and being too soft on crime, and then Clinton, of course, goes back to Arkansas when he's running for president and executes a guy. But he, as we said, is a very talented bassist. His band is called Capital Offense.
Beautiful.
Oh my God.
And they spell capital with an O, so it's about the dome. And they've played for political events, parties, inaugural balls. They played W. Bush's inaugural ball, and so he parlays this bass playing career into a run for president. 2008. He's not very well known, but he launches January 28th, 2007. And his campaign sign, I'll always remember this because for whatever reason, his name is in yellow font. And that always kind of bothered me.
It looks like someone peed on the sign. Maybe that's what he's into.
I don't know if he's trying to, because if you look at it not very closely, it looks like it's Maccabee. So I don't know if he's trying to go for like a biblical or a theological.
That makes sense. Yeah. The only people in the Bible who are real. Yeah, the Maccabees.
But other than that, it's a very bland background. Like it's American flag. But
it looks like is it the Pepsi?
Oh yeah,
Right?
the swoosh
the swoosh with the white.
Yeah.
And Obama had a Pepsi-like logo, right? And he won the election, so it was the Pepsi election.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
But I don't know why he did the yellow. It's like nothing. The American flag is yellow. I don't know if that's.
We haven't seen a lot of yellow. We analyzed these logos. Yeah, Marco Rubio had some black, and that was scandalous. But this yellow is crazier.
But yeah, he's not a very well-known candidate. He is promoting the fair tax, which not to be confused with the flat tax.
It's so much worse.
Yes. What is
so
this
flat tax? Okay, what we have now is rich people pay 35%, and then everyone else pays like a lower rate. So the more you make, the higher rate you pay. Flat taxes, we all pay the same rate. We've done Steve Forbes. That's already a big giveaway to rich people. Huckabee wants the fair tax, which until him was only endorsed by this guy Alan Keyes, who's the most nutty Republican, and it's basically just a national sales tax. So it's possible that everything you buy has a 20 or 30% federal tax on it. And if you're a poor person buying food, this is devastating. Though Huckabee will obviously say that it isn't. He says somehow the poor people will benefit, even though every analysis says it won't, and that it'll have to be a really high tax and it will really hurt working people. Also, this gets rid of corporate taxes, capital gains taxes, and a lot of other stuff that rich people pay. I'm sure it gets rid of the estate tax as well.
Yeah. would benefit the rich, and he does read a book about it, and I think he's one of these guys who doesn't have a ton of advisors around, so he actually reads a book and is convinced by it. But his real bugbear is abortion and social issues. He says we elevate and celebrate life, and counterposes the anti-abortion movement with Muslim terrorists, jihadists for some reason.
This is going to get Islamophobe,
which is still
not a Republican Islamophobe.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I was watching one of the debates from the primaries, and they're still doing the thing where they're like, well, most Muslims are God-fearing, good people. It's just a tiny minority. So even it's weird to back then, like it's gotten worse. Usually over history, people get more enlightened, even if they have bad opinions, but they've just totally gone backwards
with all their
issue.
Policies. It seems like reproductive rights, like gender equality, all of it. I mean, it's crazy. I feel like they've just become more evangelized over the years. Maybe because they're seeing progressions in other people or other like parties are coming out and they're like, oh, we got to hold steadfast even more to our belief system.
Right.
I feel like maybe they're scared to lose that.
Yeah, but in this primary, there's Giuliani, who's actually kind of liberal on abortion and gun rights and stuff.
Right.
And they're just like, we're not doing this, and he does terrible, and he gets beat by Mike Huckabee,
right,
among many others.
But the reason he's a contender at first, and we'll do an episode about him at some point, is because he is so pro-war on terror, and he's like, I'm the guy who was mayor during 9/11, and I have all these Project for a New American Century ghouls behind me, and we're gonna just keep the war going. And for a minute there, that was what Republicans wanted at the end of the Bush years, and then his campaign crapped out. And Huckabee's doesn't. He stays in for a while. His healthcare plan, this is pre-Obamacare, so there's a lot more openness to healthcare reform from both parties. His healthcare plan is a lot like John Edwards' plan. Give the American people the same healthcare as members of Congress.
Healthcare by talking point. Yeah,
right.
A copy of the Bible.
But each verse covers a different ailment. But Kerry kind of had a similar thing. It was like, just give the American people the same healthcare benefits we have in Congress, but what he doesn't mention is that most members of Congress are rich and can afford more coverage on top of that. And he did have a healthcare plan in Arkansas that helped increase preventative care, because again, it's like a purple state at this point. More so in like the 90s. But he's talking about immigration. He says it would be sheer folly to attempt to suddenly impose a strict enforcement of existing laws, round up 12 million people, march them across the border, and expect them to stay, which is a good point that is now to the left of the Democratic Party, it seems.
I do like he has the one metaphor in immigration. He says, like, well, we'll let them go across, and then they can come in like it's a sporting event, one at a time with a ticket, as if it's that simple and a 1,000-mile border and people fleeing all kinds of terrible things.
Yeah. He's asked, would Jesus support immigration? Well, how would Jesus feel about immigration? And he says, well, Jesus would be too smart to ever run for political office.
Jesus wouldn't be allowed in.
Yeah. Right. This is part of their mythos. It was the immigrant was part of the Republican Party's thing up until like the 80s, 90s, and now they're moving to the right. But Huckabee is one of these compassionate conservatives, so he's trying to split the difference. Says, I can't part the Red Sea, but I can part the red tape.
It's amazing. See, he's trying to be Reagan. He's very into Reagan. And he's very into Reagan. He thinks he is Reagan, and he's the most like Reagan of these guys. But John McCain is certainly no Reagan.
Yeah. He has some, a lot of proposals that don't hold up if you're a Republican. He is saying he wants to build a highway from
Bangor, Maine.
From Bangor, Maine to Miami in order to stimulate the economy. And Romney says that would take too long. But he's also like saying we have, climate change is real, which, most Republicans at this point were saying. And he says, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a conservationist. It's just when you become an environmentalist. A conservationist cares deeply about the environment, wants to steward it, yet recognizes that we may appropriately use renewable resources to sustain life. But we have to remember that it's God who made everything. But still, that's like, if you're acknowledging there's stuff the government can do to conserve resources in the environment, that's like, nobody talks that way anymore.
Yeah, this is 08's pre-Tea Party, so they're allowed to kind of talk about climate change in a way they're not really allowed to after that.
Yeah.
On the GOP side.
But yeah, there's a line he has about foreign policy, and he says, if you engage us militarily, next thing you'll see after you put your sights on the U.S. is the gates of hell. Oh, yeah. So he's like good at delivering these joke lines, but he's also just able to be a convincing, just thunder and brimstone imperialist if he needs to be. But on Iraq, this does get him in trouble later, where he writes an article for Foreign Affairs magazine or Foreign Policy magazine, where he says that Bush has had an arrogant bunker mentality when it comes to foreign policy, which is like kind of a bold statement for a Republican to make. But in general, he thinks, it's pointless to relitigate if we should have gone into Iraq, but now that we're there, we have to finish the job. And the generals will figure this out.
And that's because of the Democratic debate they're talking about leaving, and Obama's obviously against Iraq. So the Republicans are saying, we still want to win the Iraq war, or at least get some kind of peace with honor kind of bullshit.
Yeah. Maybe the highlight of his campaign is he's endorsed by Chuck Norris.
This is the highlight of his entire life. Chuck Norris was big. You know about the Chuck Norris jokes?
No.
So Chuck Norris basically had jokes like...
I know the Chuck Norris jokes, but what does that have to do? Yeah.
He endorses Mike Huckabee.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And Mike Huckabee loves corny humor and Chuck Norris.
Oh, that makes sense. Like Chuck Norris can divide by 0 or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
And this is 08, so this is in the Chuck Norris joke peak.
I remember those, God.
Yeah, so Chuck Norris is a right-wing conservative.
Right,
So,
and a lot of people don't know that. I think when they're doing those jokes, it's just like he's an action hero. But I remember watching an interview with him where there's a Chuck Norris joke about evolution. Basically, I won't butcher it, but like the end stage of evolution is Chuck Norris.
Yeah. And
Chuck Norris is told that joke, and he's like, you know what? That one's not funny. Because evolution is not real.
Oh, God.
And he's always been like this hardline conservative.
Chuck created Adam and Eve.
Yeah. And I think some of his movies, if I'm not mistaken, are about like fighting the Sandinistas in the 80s. Could be mixing him up with someone else. But he is online. His fans tell him to support Mike Huckabee. And so Mike Huckabee finds out that Chuck Norris is supporting him, and they cut this ad together. And one of the lines is, Mike Huckabee says, "My plan to secure the border, 2 words, Chuck Norris." Which, if that was the actual policy, I think I might be okay with that. Just having one guy like LARPing at the border, and that's effectively an open border because he wouldn't be able to do much.
Chuck has been pitching that movie, I'm sure.
But yeah, he campaigns for him, and Norris says that McCain is too old, and Huckabee says he can't contradict him because he's standing right next to me, and I'm scared to. So he's kind of like the attack dog. Like he says stuff like McCain's a grandpa, and it's like, what do you want me to contradict Chuck Norris, who's gonna beat me up?
Would have been amazing if Chuck was VP nominee.
It may have happened.
Also more knowledgeable on the issues than Sarah Palin, who eventually gets that position.
Yeah, no kidding. McCain though does have Sylvester Stallone, so. Maybe they could have settled it.
As a Stallone fan, way better.
Yeah. There's a story he loves to tell about a teacher's urn.
Or teacher's desk,
A teacher's desk. What is this story?
Okay, so the kids come to school, the teacher won't give them desks. The whole day, they're like, "What? You have to earn your desk, you have to earn your desk." The whole day, there's no desks. Everyone's calling the media, they're reporting on it. And then at the very end, the day she has a bunch of soldiers bring the desks in, and she's like, "You don't have to earn your desks; they earned it for you. So support the troops." And it's just like a perfect Huckabee story of just loving God and the country and worshiping soldiers.
Yeah. So in Iowa, a lot of evangelicals in Iowa in the Republican Party, and Huckabee is able to appeal to them. He has a Christmas ad where he says, what really matters is the celebration of the birth of Christ. And this is, the height of the war on Christmas, supposedly. Christianity's under attack because people are saying happy holidays. But this resonates with caucus goers in Iowa who are Republicans.
I have to say, I watched the ad. It resonated with me. It's like he has this warmth to him, and he's not talking about politics at all. You just get the vibe.
Yeah.
On vibes, he's the best candidate.
What's the preacher in him, you think?
Yeah.
Because they're they're performers. Preachers are 100% performers. Do you think it's people say if Hitler made it as an artist, he probably wouldn't have done the Holocaust. What if he just became a successful stand-up comedian like Huckabee? Would he be not running for? Who knows? But,
Yeah.
He would be the best Christian comedian. I think there are Christian comedians.
Oh yeah, that's true. There's
Yeah.
That's a whole line of a whole nother. Who books that, guys?
Yeah.
I'll be Republican.
He would have made a lot more money. Yeah.
No, that's true. That's a good point. I'm sure there's a whole Bible Belt scene.
Yeah. I mean, there's dry bar comedy for Mormons.
That's true. And it's pretty successful.
Yeah.
But they don't exclusively put Mormons on.
Right. You just have to be clean.
Yeah, you just have to be,
Yeah. But I wonder if that includes clean political material.
Oh, yeah. Is it in line with,
I think there's
that'd be an
rules.
interesting.
I think they probably tell you to be apolitical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting that test if you submitted
I did submit to
you
them,
did?
and I
Okay.
haven't heard back. So I guess we have our answer.
But speaking of religion, this is something Mike Huckabee considers a religious experience. Duck hunting in Arkansas.
He's so into duck hunting.
It's transcendent.
Yeah.
You're one with the rifle. You're one with the duck.
And not the video game, I assume. Not the Nintendo.
That would be funny
fun.
if he said that, and then he's like, "All right, we're gonna do a photo op. Come watch me do duck hunt," and it's just him at an arcade, in the back of a bar.
He probably hated that game. He's like, "It's keep people off the ponds."
But he settles for pheasants in Iowa and hunts them and gets some exposure. And he's got a hat the day after Christmas. Caucus is coming up. It says "Eat, Sleep, Hunt," and people love it. And he's kind of as you said, he's kind of the perfect candidate for rural America.
Yeah, pre-Trump, but he's one of them. Yeah, he even says he calls people like us. We're from Bubbleville in New York City. He's from Bubbaville.
Is that what our neighborhood is called? I've been trying to figure this out.
Oh, yeah,
'Cause what
Bubble
is
style.
yeah.
Bubble chic.
Yeah.
We can't figure out if we're in Bed-Stuy or Bushwick or some other thing, but he's one of them. He's from this background, from a small town, and
Because Mitt Romney's trying to hunt also, and Romney's this is the first time he ever hunted, and he looks really fake.
yeah.
He calls Mitt Romney a first-day NRA, the world's newest NRA member or something like that.
Oh, my God.
And he is able to win it. January 3rd, 2008, gets 34% of the electorate, which equals 17 delegates. Mitt Romney comes in second. John McCain comes in fourth, which, kind of goes to show that Iowa isn't always very relevant.
And I think McCain wasn't prioritizing it.
Yeah,
Iowa.
I think he figured he would lose it because he had made inroads with the evangelicals from 2000, but he had still talked a bunch of smack 8 years ago that they hadn't forgotten, and so they went with a religious nut.
And he had won New Hampshire in 2000, so I bet McCain was confident he could win New Hampshire, and then he does, and that kind of gets him started on his run.
Yeah,
towards the nomination.
Right. So, Chuck Norris comes with him to New Hampshire. They campaign. He plays Freebird at a rally in New Hampshire. There's you found some fun YouTube comments from this video.
Yeah. They say, one guy says they represent in their approach to music, dress, and mannerisms the exact opposite of the freedom and rebellion of rock. Mr. Romney is wearing I think a collared white shirt, and it's tucked into his jeans.
Oh my God.
At one point, he does get to play with Leonard Skinner, which I know was probably a highlight for him.
Yeah.
I think they were the band that had the Confederate flag on their merch, though.
Yeah, Sweet Home Alabama.
He never addresses the Confederate flag, but I don't think he has a good opinion on it.
Yeah. January 8th, 2008, he comes in third place in New Hampshire, right behind, behind Mitt Romney, who's thereby behind McCain. And, this is not really his state. It's Northeastern. It's, not as socially conservative, kind of a libertarian state. And but he does, hang in there and comes in third in Michigan, where, Mitt Romney's originally from. And then he's kind of like the last guy hanging against McCain, because Mitt Romney has to drop out eventually.
I think he's out by Florida.
Yeah.
And then Huckabee's hanging in towards Texas.
Yeah.
And he makes a last stand. He does a photo op at the Alamo as his last stand. I'm going to drop out if I don't win at Texas, just like the guys who, conquered it from Mexico. And they ask him if he's going to badmouth McCain at all about some scandal about sleeping with a lobbyist. And he won't do it because he obeys Reagan's 11th commandment. Now shall never speak ill of a Republican.
Right.
So he's not much of a negative campaigner, except to Republicans, except a little bit to Mitt Romney, who he may not consider a real Republican.
Yeah, he hates Mitt Romney. He absolutely loathes him. And I think it's kind of a class thing because, at some point, I think it was maybe Huckabee who said this, that Mitt Romney kind of seems like the guy who just laid you off.
Yeah, yeah.
And he is, talking. They swarm him at one of the debates because Huckabee's kind of becoming the front runner, and they point to all of these Democratic positions he held and Democratic bills he signed as governor of Arkansas. And for a second there, they were saying that he would represent the death of the Reagan coalition, the Reagan Republican Party.
Huckabee.
Yeah, because he had, on the one hand, signed sort of economically, moderate to liberal bills, and also was criticizing Bush's foreign policy. So it seemed for a second there that maybe you would have a Republican Party that's zealotlessly socially conservative, but a little more liberal on other stuff, which is, not what happened.
And Huckabee would be very offended because he loves Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. Yeah. And he is, in fairness, I think the closest to Reagan in terms of his charisma,
Yeah.
Fred Thompson tried to, get in on that, but he was a bit too aloof.
Are you a Law and Order fan?
Yeah, I used to watch it oh my God, all the time. I haven't seen it.
So he's the guy who's on Law and Order, Fred Thompson, and he was a senator, and he's running on a pretty racist platform. Well, yeah, we're definitely gonna do him at some point.
Yeah. But yeah, Huckabee does come in fourth in Florida, second place in South Carolina, and McCain oddly wins South Carolina because he lost. That's kind of his last stand in 2000, and he managed to do it in 2008. I think because of military support, because there's a lot of military people in South Carolina. But Huckabee is getting the evangelicals, and he sticks in it, fourth place in Florida, and has some wins on Super Tuesday. He, I think, wins in West Virginia and some other southern states, Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee. So he's kind of, getting the Republican base. But I think Republicans overall are a little wary of this guy because he's a lot like Bush. He's a governor of a southern state, and, we just had 8 years of that. Bush is historically unpopular. So maybe an evangelical Southerner isn't what is going to beat, at the time they thought, Hillary Clinton, but Barack Obama.
And McCain's clearly a break from Bush. He was a rival of Bush. And Mitt Romney's just not up to snuff. A lot of what Huckabee does is end up hurting Romney a good amount.
Yeah. Yeah. He hates Mitt Romney. After Mitt Romney drops out, I remember there was a quote where it was from they didn't name the person, but they said it was a staffer from a rival campaign or a campaign manager from a rival campaign who said they wanted to beat Mitt Romney up, basically. And you could kind of tell it was Huckabee's guy.
He says Romney's trying to do a leverage buyout of the nomination. That's how Romney made his money. He says at one point they're at the University of Iowa, and Romney's team has all these golf carts, and they're taking up all the parking. And Huckabee is so mad that he writes about it in his book that he writes the next year.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
What
so
does
there's
he
a
say
parking.
about it?
They're just they were supposed to all share the parking. And he had 40 golf carts, and they're just taking up all the parking, and it's not very collegial because everyone else was very collegial on the campaign.
Yeah. But he goes on SNL too. There's a Weekend Update appearance he makes where they tell him that statistically it's impossible for him to win the nomination, and he's like, "Well, I believe in miracles, so I'm gonna, wait until it's time for me to go, and then I'll make my exit." And then he keeps sitting at the desk, and they're like, "Governor Huckabee, it's time to go." It's a pretty good bit.
Another life highlight from him.
Yeah. And his last stand, as it were, is in Texas. He does a media op by the Alamo. Yeah. And then he really hopes he's going to win, but John McCain bests him and clinches the Republican nomination, and so he has to drop out. I think Ron Paul is technically still in it till the bitter end, but Huckabee's the last serious candidate who's facing McCain, and ultimately he and Romney are kind of tied for second.
Ron Paul's cool because he's bashing the Iraq War a lot. He's anti-interventionist, and then they all just gang up on him at the debates.
Yeah.
But he's not going to get nearly enough of the party to win anything.
Yeah. And yeah, so he drops out. He supports McCain in the general election. And then I think pretty quickly gets the Fox show, which is just called Huckabee. And it's a pretty lucrative job. And he has this book that comes out too in 2009 where he refers to CPAC as the Conservative Presidential Anxiety Conference and calls it a game of Dude, Where's My Candidate? So yeah, he's got some good. A lot of times these guys don't write their books, but I think maybe he had those lines and maybe gave them to a ghostwriter.
He just wrote a book around those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially.
There's a lot of puns, yeah. The books are full of puns.
Yeah. But he becomes, he's like a pretty top-rated host on Fox for a while with the show Huckabee. There's a band he plays with. I forget which band it is, but he does a really weird. He plays music on the show.
Oh, of course.
And he does interview Mitt Romney at one point. I was trying to find this video. It's not. I wasn't able to find it on YouTube, but as Romney is gearing up for another run, he kind of becomes a little acquiesced to him.
Actually, I got a conspiracy there. Okay, so Huckabee could have had a good shot at the nomination in 2012, but he doesn't run, and he seems to be nicer to Romney. I could see Romney maybe paying him off because I'm wondering why Huckabee didn't run in 2012. I think he could have won the nomination and maybe even put up some points against Obama in the general.
Yeah.
But something just doesn't happen. He just stays in the media and doesn't run again until 2016 when he has no shot.
Right, yeah. He's kind of he basically admits that it's because of the money that he wants to stay, in his media career and doesn't want to run for president because he would have to give up his show. And, he's got a lucrative lifestyle. This is not a guy who's made a ton of money up to this point. So he doesn't. So, yeah, maybe Romney paid him off. But as he says, all the factors say go, but my heart says no. Little Huckabeeism.
Because then they keep searching for someone who's not Romney. They jump to Herman Cain, all these terrible candidates. Rick Santorum kind of wins Iowa and becomes it. But Rick Santorum is kind of just a nerd. and doesn't have the warmth of Huckabee. So Huckabee would have done a lot better.
Yeah. And he does kind of throw a bone, I guess, to birtherism because he's on the Steve Malzberg show, which is a guy I actually had the misfortune of knowing a little bit when I was at RT America, the conservative idiot. And he says he's asked about Obama's birth certificate, and Huckabee says, I would love to know more. What I know is troubling enough. And one thing that I do know is having grown up in Kenya, his view of the Brits, for example, is very different than the average American. So pretty, for a guy who like defended Reverend Wright to turn around and just, lend credence to this idea that Obama was born in Kenya it shows you he will go low if he feels
and he's referencing an uprising that happened. It's called the Mau Mau uprising that happened in 1952, which is before Obama was born. And Obama was born in Hawaii. So Obama was not existing in Hawaii, not part of this uprising against the British.
Yeah. And he continues his stunts. The Chick-fil-A in the early 2010s is they are donating to anti-gay candidates and causes, and there's a call for a boycott. And Mike Huckabee launches Chick-fil-A Appreciation Day.
Great internal rhyme.
Yeah, and I can't help, I'm sure it's possible there's a sponsorship there as well.
Oh, yeah.
But more than 630,000 people signed up to celebrate this, and you just go to Chick-fil-A, and I remember seeing a video.
Palin was in that,
yeah.
I don't know if she was part of that, but I remember the whole people taking pictures of trying to make a statement.
Yeah,
we will double down on our Chick-fil-A.
Right, double down is KFC, I think.
Oh
so,
yeah,
just kidding.
So Huckabee started it. He liked that the guy said well, I don't like gay marriage, and he thinks the guy should have free speech or whatever. I didn't know Huckabee was that involved in this thing, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an excuse for him to break his diet.
Oh, yeah.
And then, he's made his money. He's become a big shot, and maybe he's getting a little bored or something. So he takes another look at the presidency. And I remember this in 2015. He was saying... because of all this speculation, I haven't even announced yet, but because of all this influx of speculation that I'm running for president, I do have to end my Fox show. And Jon Stewart pointed out, no one really cared.
No need to announce that.
Yeah.
But this is his logo.
It's way better.
It's way better. I mean, he still has the P yellow in there. He could have made that white. The stars. I don't. That makes even less sense to me. That's why you have the American flag colors without any white in there.
The yellow stars is a Jew. It looks a little Nazi. The yellow, the stars, they're not Jewish stars, but those yellow stars, it is a little scary. Yeah. I know he's supposed to be anti-Holocaust, but I don't know.
What's the more you know star? Is it yellow?
Yes, I think so. Or gold.
Gold. Okay, that's what I was.
That star is not anti-Semitic. We call that philo-Semitic. That's pro-Jew. That star. Yeah. But these yellow stars are a little suspect.
Yeah. Yeah. From hope to higher ground, it says, and this is a very 2010s kind of logo.
Because we all remember where he was born.
Right. It's kind of like an eagle, but also a flag.
I see. Because Obama was hope, so it means from Obama to higher ground. Okay.
I guess.
Obama ran on hope and change.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So hope's a winning. Hope candidates have been winning. So
also kind of has a Reebok looking. I don't know.
Yes.
Something that kind of reminds me of that. I mean, I'm sure that. Do you think they talk to brand experts and consultants on this stuff? Or is he just I like this?
I think at this point he had money to hire consultants. In the first logo, he didn't have money.
Yeah, he's just slapped it together as before Canva was accessible to everybody.
But this one he put good money into.
Yeah. And I remember seeing, I watched a clip from this time. He's interviewed on CNBC and says he would bring back the Glass-Steagall Act. And he talks about the last time running for president that all these, blue bloods looked down on him, and he actually understands what the American people are going through, and it's kind of, I think it was like a populist move to try and ape some of the Trump momentum.
And that's the same thing Bernie's running on. It's basically saying that banks have to either be take deposits or do investments, not both.
Yeah.
And Bernie's running on that. Yeah, he in the '08 debates kind of can see the recession coming because he's talking to regular people, and a lot of his opponents are not.
Yeah.
Because Mitt Romney is not allowed within 50 feet of a regular person.
Yeah. But yeah, Fred and I will go into his 2016 run more on the bonus episode. But one highlight I did want to share is his campaign released a parody of Adele's Hello because it wasn't doing so well. So they're like, how do we get some attention? And they actually got a pretty good singer to do this. And it would make sense he would know like choir people. And so he's a woman.
It's a banger.
Yeah.
Big fan of the song.
Yeah. But one of the lines is, if Bernie wins Iowa, I'm gonna die.
And he puts a gun to his head too. Yeah, he's serious.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're scared of socialism taking over. So we usually round out by discussing what things would be like if Mike Huckabee or whoever our subject is became president. And I think there was a shot at him getting the nomination in 2008. I do want to, part of me says that if he got the nomination, the few things he was a little bit more moderate on, the Republican consultant class would have came in and said, you got to scrap that or the funding's going to dry up. You're not going to get any donations. But also it's 2008, October financial crisis. McCain's saying he's going to regulate Wall Street. Maybe if Huckabee wins, and he would have been a better candidate than McCain in a lot of ways.
McCain was pretty weak.
Yeah, McCain was, because he didn't really excite the base.
Yeah.
They were already kind of demoralized, and fear of the first black president, maybe he would have been able to capture that more. And if, I still think Obama would have won, but if somehow Huckabee wins, then maybe you actually get regulations on Wall Street that are like about the same as what Obama ended up doing a year or two into his presidency. What do you guys think?
I like Huckabee. I think he wins in 2012, and he prevents Trump. Basically, he wins in 2012 because Obama's is more beatable, and he's not good, but like he makes a country a little less angry, and we don't end up with Trump. And honestly, it's the best thing that ever happened to us. So yeah, if I have a time machine, I'm getting him to run in 12, and we're changing this country. Yeah,
I think it would be a lot punnier. I mean, I don't know. I don't think the system will change. I don't think anything will really change as long as the system is what it is. I don't know, but I think it would be full of more music. Yeah, if it prevents Trump, like, again, I guess that's a good thing. But on the other hand, I think maybe we need some sort of crazy person like Trump to make people like take this all seriously again and everything. I don't know, or to change the system. Maybe I don't know. I know I'm getting into more of a serious.
No, it's asking a lot for Mike Huckabee to fix the country. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't. I think this country is just FUBAR. Like, I don't think unless we like scrap the whole system and start over. I don't know. Like, how are you gonna? Any presidential candidate is not gonna really move the needle by much. Like, historically, if you look at it, like even in the last few. Or even Obama, who were like hope and all this, and he's gonna make things better, and it's like no, maybe marginally. Right. So it's just a different face of the same shit, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and his ambassadorship certainly it's not a lot to be optimistic about there, but at least it's like I think the fact that you have an evangelical Christian as the ambassador to Israel, hopefully we'll get a few more people to question things a little bit more and be like, wait, why are they pro-Israel? And just realize how weird it is and realize that our foreign policy in many respects is guided by fundamentalist Christian extremists who have like these really retrograde views about Muslims and Jews. You know, I think that's a big part of it, is like realizing that actually there's a lot of anti-Semites who support Israel.
And Christians, if they're Palestinian, that's a complete disregard to all the Christian Palestinians.
Yeah.
And which make up a big, portion of, Palestine and the Middle East. I mean, they're obviously the minority, but still, it's just crazy to me that they have complete disregard.
Yeah.
It's like, you preach these Christian values. What about the actual Christians there?
Yeah, a ton of churches
who are getting bombed and killed, and
it's really
it's insanity.
Maybe Huckabee will go to a Palestinian church and have some kind of enlightenment or something, but that's hoping a lot.
It might be worth it for them to invite him, but he does suck.
Yeah,
it's also, he has no tie to that region. His family was in America since colonial times. They were debtors in England who were just like dropped in Georgia. Like his family had never been to the Middle East until him.
Yeah. That's crazy. All right. Well, Atheer, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you and your work?
You can follow me on socials at Atheer Yacoub, AtheerYacoub. And Mike Huckabee. That's
a good one.
My new, I don't know. He'll probably love that. That's what I hate about it.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you're roasting.
He does love a pun. Yeah.
I do too. Damn it.
Usually his are G-rated. So
yeah.
That would make
Freakabee.
Freakabee.
Yeah, he's anti-swearing too. Yeah, he does talk about that. Yeah, he compares being gay to swearing. It's like it's a different lifestyle that he doesn't like. Yeah.
I can't help it. I was born this way.
Yeah.
Just follow me. I have a podcast called Toxic Dump. But everything, if you just go to my Instagram mainly or atheeryacoub.com.
All right. It's Vanquished. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Vanquished. If you want the full thing, because there is more, please go to patreon.com/The Vanquished, where you can get the rest of this episode as well as our full episode catalog. You can support our work as well as annoy us in the comments.